You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to yet again another episode of the Red Moon Podcast, live every single Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, on all of your favorite social media platforms. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian,
and
Otis Ediford.
Otis Ediford. He's not Dag Paftra.
Dag Paftra's over. He was killed.
What?
Yes.
What happened to Dag?
Some irate writer said, "I don't like you, Dag," and shot him.
Was it Klaus?
I think it was Damon Lindelof. He shot him.
He kills all the good ones. Gosh. He just kills everybody.
It's like he said, "Dag, I think you're a pretty good franchise. Let me ruin you."
That's it. That's what
Yeah.
he does best. I mean, that is Damon's legacy. And then he just became a crap writer. So it's just like can't depend on him anymore.
And now Dag's dead.
Dag is dead.
Dag's dead.
Dag's dead.
Dag's dead.
Dag's dead. Man, that made me think of Zed is dead, and that made me
Zed's
think of
dead.
Pulp Fiction,
Zed's
and
dead.
that made me think of Bruce Willis.
No.
And
go
he's
there.
suffering,
And
man.
now I'm in pain too.
I am.
At
Die
least
Hard.
he's got a TikTok now.
Well, his daughter does. I mean, she's milking this. That's terrible. Yes.
There it is. She's milking lots of things.
No, I will say it was very sweet.
Whoa.
I don't even know.
I hope
what.
not.
I don't know.
I hope
Just-
not.
just
Bruce
keep
Willis is
going.
their dad.
Yeah.
I forgot what podcast we were on. Sorry.
But no, that was a very sweet, sentimental video.
Yeah.
Obviously, it is sad because
It is.
in a weird way, it was sweet, but a lot of people were scolding. I saw people on both sides. I saw people scolding her for like, taking advantage of him. And I'm like,
using your dad for some limelight.
but here's the thing. He doesn't know what's going on, and he is a major
So it makes it
star.
okay to take advantage of him?
Look, AI
Absolutely.
is more popular
It's like,
by
let's
the
just
day.
take all his money because he doesn't know you're spending it anyway.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't matter.
No, I don't think that's what she's doing.
No.
no, I get it, and I think
Look,
she
it
does
didn't
understand.
to me, it didn't seem exploitive. It
No.
seemed like it was an insight into here he is. He does not show his face
yes.
anymore, but he's still there. And it was a rare insight into someone struggling with that on that kind of star level. That in an odd way, I was kind of comforted with seeing because it's like it doesn't matter who you are in life. It doesn't matter if you're a major star. You can't escape, certain health outcomes.
I think she just knows people are like, he has a massive fan base. He's Bruce Willis. And I think she
Yes.
just kind of wanted to let fans know, here he is. This is what's going on. Like, it is sad, but also we appreciate that he does have a massive fan base. So.
To me, it's this. It's a little different, but I appreciate the love that comes from. I'm forgetting his name. This is terrible. Doc Brown. Christopher
Lloyd.
Christopher Lloyd.
His Twitter account is run by his family because he's old enough and he
Yeah.
doesn't, really speak, I guess, as coherently as his Twitter profile leads you to believe.
Yeah.
And they stayed on there very plainly, like they are doing it on behalf of him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of memorabilia stuff. It's a lot of Back to the Future tie-ins, and it's pictures of him and Michael J. Fox, and it's just like it's nice to see. It's heartwarming to me. It's what fanfare should be on a level of celebrity status that we used to get in this country, because celebrities weren't just about these political figures or become these political figures with a platform that all of a sudden rant and rave about stuff that nobody cares about or cares to hear their opinion on. And they think somebody does care because, oh, look at them. They're in the limelight and everybody loves them. And they think all of a sudden their voice matters more than other people's. It's like, no, you're a celebrity. You're here to entertain us. And it's nice when you have the old faithful that actually still hold to that value. And they know what that old star celebrity status used to be. We don't really have much like that anymore. They got Tom Cruise. That's about it. Everybody else that I can think of is either old and not with us,
So
or
sad.
They just they are part of that crowd now that is of the new wave Hollywood of you better align with me on every single issue. But I didn't really want to start off the show on a doldrum. I didn't want to do that. Because we got warm coffee.
Warm.
Isn't it beautiful?
It tastes delicious, too.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
It is delicious.
It hits the right spot.
Took a week off from beer. Had beer the last 2 weeks, and now we're back to the
Yeah, beer's
beer.
good.
But
Well, there's really
coffee's good.
there's not really any other beer. Well, there's some beer in the fridge, but it's only the habanero beer. And while good, you have to really be in the mood for that
just
one.
habaneros.
You gotta be. It's a pumpkin habanero, so
was
it's
good.
like you have to like. That's one that I like. Brandon asked, and I was like, nah, I'd rather do coffee. I don't want an atomic pumpkin today.
Same.
Yeah.
I don't either. But no, we have a good show in store. We've got our review this week
Yeah, it's a good show. It's good.
of the
reviews, yeah.
good. Well, it's not the big one on the block. It didn't win out. It didn't get number one. Napoleon is our review this week, but it was beaten out. It was staved off from the number one spot, not from Wish, which flopped.
Ha.
Another Disney flop at the box
Came in
office.
third.
Third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's opening weekend.
Weekend of-
Thanksgiving.
This is the week. Like that's
Second year in a row that
read,
Disney has flopped.
I read an article earlier today that said Avatar: The Way of Water made more money just off that one movie than Disney has.
Yeah.
In the I think it was like in the last 2 years.
Probably since it released. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
It wouldn't
because
surprise me.
Everything's been a flop. They've been losing money, and this was no different. I mentioned in my review, but it's for Thanksgiving weekend. So the top 5 film openings on Thanksgiving weekend are all Disney movies. The top 10, 8 out of 10 of those are Disney movies. So 8 out of 10 of the top 10 opening films, top 10 grossing films opening for Thanksgiving weekend are owned by Disney. That shows you the power of people that's family. You go out with your family
right.
on Thanksgiving weekend. It's a 5-day weekend, not for everybody, but by box office terms, they consider it 5-day weekend. Most movies actually drop Wednesday because of that. And yeah, they tend to boom. Frozen, I think, is still number one, holds the number one spot of opening Thanksgiving weekend. And it did almost triple the amount Wish did. So that shows you the bad.
It also shows you how far Disney has fallen.
Yeah.
That it's not been like that for quite some time.
I was
and it's just it's not a sure bet. I mean, even Bob Iger was at the town hall today speaking to his employees, saying, "Oh, we gotta write the course. It's it's not that I bit off more than I could chew coming back, and I wanted to be back and part of this, and I knew it was going to take some challenges, but we've still got a long way to go." I'm like,
they've been
no,
talking all year long about writing the course.
Yeah.
right? That's what I'm saying. Is
And Grant, I know
At some
movies
point,
are
you
you
haven't
actually
seen
have to
any
start doing
evidence,
that.
right?
And I understand these movies were in production before he came back into the helm, but you haven't shown that you've done anything to change the course. It's like
Well, I just love that-
he could say it's like, well, that was in production before I took over.
They want to say we're focusing on quality over quantity now, or quantity over quality. No, wait, quality over quantity.
One of those.
But it's interesting because I'm just like, there have been several opportunities this year where you could have seen the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
You could have pulled a Batgirl. Could have pulled it off the shelves and been like, this is going to be abysmal. It's not going to do
It's
well.
like, how long did it take you, like with Marvel, to realize, oh, you need showrunners and actual show producers? You can't just you can't just produce 10 episodes and think, oh, shouldn't check to make sure they're good first.
Yeah.
Like,
and look, it's not that I'm willing to admit that, yes, it takes a while. It takes time to write the course, especially a ship that is as large as Disney.
it's going to take a long time.
Well,
for
that's the
Disney.
bigger problem, is the bigger the ship, the harder it is to turn. And the fact is that you just turned into this woke nonsense about 3 years ago, and it has been steadily in decline since, and it's going to take a long time to get out of that. And honestly, it's going to take even longer to dig yourself out of the grave that so many have already put you in their own minds. And you're just not. It's going to be so much longer for people, for you to gain the people's trust again. It's just going to be that much longer, and that's not going to happen overnight. That's not going to happen within the next couple years.
I'm surprised that it came in third. Like, I wasn't expecting it to come in first, but what beat it is what's shocking. Is that what we reviewed? What came in first was Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbird 6. That didn't surprise me that much. I was like, I thought that might take number one since.
We had said last
Yeah.
week that it might catch a second wind where you have some word of mouth and you have people who are curious. And
Trolls
it's the
is
Thanksgiving
also
weekend.
streaming, so it's like, okay, Thanksgiving weekend, you could go see Trolls, or you could watch it at home and take your kids to see something else as well. And I think the family audience, at least the older family audience, went to see Hunger Games because no one gives a crap about Disney. And of course, the R-rated Napoleon, which came in number 2, that's where I was really like, oh, Disney really messed up when an R-rated historical drama beat the. Yes, it's
you're
an
right.
R-rated historical drama beat a family film from Disney. That is just insane. Yeah.
But no, I one last piece of tidbit news that I want to throw out there because it's not really a headline, because now we can thankfully say that one of the breaking news stories over the last day or day and a half was that Looney Tunes was being removed.
That was a
Max.
mistake. That was a mistake.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with people getting pissed off.
Right.
We totally didn't intend to put that in the list of things leaving.
And honestly, I'm glad they reversed the decision. But it honestly is. I was going to come on here with the statement if they were to double down or not, or just keep that decision. But my statement still holds true, even with them backtracking and keeping Looney Tunes on there. Torrent anything that you can that is a classic. I don't care if it's illegal. Do it at your own risk. But the fact of the matter is that is the only way moving forward in the future to do two different things. One, hold these production and distribution houses accountable for what they put out there, and then try to pull back and say, oh no. We're not going to make that available anymore.
That's what changed the streaming landscape to begin with. People were tired of paying astronomical prices to purchase movies or to purchase CDs, and Napster came out and LimeWire and all these things came out, and Apple that's why Apple was so successful, is because they gave a cheap, easier model with Apple Music.
It was
iTunes.
It was easier than just pirating.
And it's like when people realize, that's why Netflix was successful, when they realized you don't have to pay stupid cable prices, you don't have to pay all this money to go to Blockbuster or all this money to go to theaters. You could stream it from home. Pirating went down because they're like, everything's on streaming for cheap. Why do we need to pirate?
But it's the only.
But now
way,
it's gone back to pirating because.
Well, it's the only way to hit them in the pocketbooks where it counts, so that you show them what is important. And two, it's about preservation at this point. Yeah. If they, who are at the helm, do not find it to be worth their time or their effort or their resources, which doesn't make any sense, because how many times have we talked about on this show, any content being available on a streaming service does not cost them anything more. Yeah, the content's
Warner Brothers. Why would that's like Disney saying we're going to remove old Mickey Mouse cartoons from Disney Plus. Right. It's like, why would you do that? Other than they're shameful and racist.
Well,
now.
And that's the only thing. That's why I talked about preservation. It is the only way to preserve the actual history without them ripping it away and people being like, I don't know where to get this anymore. I can't find it. Yeah, it's the only way. So I say it, to hit them in the pocketbooks, to let them know you mean business as a consumer. Go out and torrent your favorite thing, so that you willingly are saying, either you make it always available on your service that I'm already paying you for, with the content that's already produced, and don't threaten me that you're going to yank it one day, and that it's always readily there and readily available as long as I'm paying that subscription fee, or I'm going to go do this because I'm going to get the content I want regardless, and I'll make sure that it's out there. And that's the only kind of message I can send with regards to that. But hey, you know what? Yeah, because of fan backlash, rightfully so, WB is eating their words, and they're I'm sorry. It's it is WB.
Yeah,
still.
Warner Discovery.
Right.
Yeah. Warner Brothers Discovery.
They're eating their words, and they're keeping it on there.
They're still shopping Coyote versus Acme around to other studios, which is still stupid to me, but
yeah. But no, all right, we're done.
I was saying,
okay, go ahead.
Have you heard about the directors canceling Warner Brother meetings now too?
No.
Directors who had meetings with Warner Brothers to make movies with Warner Brothers after they announced they were cutting, they canceled those meetings because they no longer feel safe. Like they feel like,
oh wow, their art's not going to be. Yeah.
They said, we don't trust you. They said they don't. If we can come make this movie for you, and then you'll decide to cancel it and never show it in a theater or on streaming. So we don't want to make a movie for you that'll never see the light of day.
Nice. That's right.
So there's been multiple cancellations.
That's the best way.
I'll send you a link later. I was reading about that. It's actually mentioned in the link I sent to you all about them returning
Looney Tunes. Okay.
If you read that article, they have a link from I think
we'll put it in the description of the show too.
But they have a link to a previous article about directors canceling meetings with Warner Brothers because they don't want to make movies with them if they're just going to cancel it.
I mean, and this is the great thing that we've been applauding with regard to Nolan and his pursuit of doing film. And look, this is just as important, if not more important, is film preservation. Yeah, it is making sure that older content and media in this medium, in this format, will continue to be preserved throughout time. so that people down the road can ingest it and they can actually consume it and say, oh, okay, this is either worth my time or it's not. But it should be made available. But with that being said, we're going to move on to our review of this week. Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to throw that last bit in.
I'm glad you did.
No, that's
I'm glad you
crazy.
did. Because if anything, it's going to take people in the industry to turn up and say, yeah, we're not going to work with you.
They didn't name any names, but I mean, it was Hollywood Reporter, so I trust that if they're saying there's directors canceling, that there's directors canceling.
So that's David Zaslav for you. All right, guys, let's get into our movie review this week. Here it is, our review of Napoleon.
Thanksgiving weekend is normally a busy one for the movie industry, with family films typically reigning supreme. In fact, the top 8 of the 10 highest-grossing Thanksgiving weekend premieres are all Disney-owned films, which makes this Thanksgiving weekend all the more unique. While the weekend as a whole was not as lucrative for Hollywood as past Thanksgivings, it's all the more strange that the number 1 movie ended up being last week's Hunger Games. Of the movies that premiered, Ridley Scott's Napoleon came out on top, securing the overall number 2 position, and in third came Disney's Wish. Napoleon, being an R-rated historical drama, is understandable, only landing in second, as family fare tends to reign. But how did it best Disney? The second major production this year from Apple Studios, starring Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon Bonaparte, who reunites with Ridley Scott 23 years after working together on Gladiator, Napoleon has received mixed reviews and come under fire for historical inaccuracies. Complaints director Ridley Scott has shrugged off with a verbal middle finger, depicting the most prominent historical aspects of Napoleon's life, from his ascension through the military to emperor and his marriage and devotion to Josephine, played by Vanessa Kirby. Scott is fond of historical dramas and large-scoped epics, and Napoleon does its best to be both. With brazen war scenes depicting excellent practical effects and sweeping cinematography, the film is a spectacle, especially in premium formats such as IMAX, where the sound of cannon fire shakes the very seats you sit in. The movie is a technical marvel, which is the same praise I've given every iconic director in Hollywood the last few years. It's the same praise I gave Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon. Yet despite how well crafted these movies continue to be, they lack so much more. While I was certainly more entertained and enthralled by Scott's Napoleon than Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, I found both commit many of the same sins. The same errors Hollywood in general continue to make. They lack nuance, subtlety, and intrigue. They lack purpose. Phoenix, an actor highly praised for his craft, just comes off as adequate, if not a tad dull, as Bonaparte. He certainly has his moments, but in general he doesn't make for the most compelling lead. The movie jumps from historical event to historical event, but glosses over all political details, the machinations that led to said events, and Napoleon's personal motivations. We see his rise, but his rise has little impact outside of already knowing that historically Napoleon conquered half of Europe. Instead, the parts of the film highlighting Napoleon's military and political ascent and aspirations play more like a clip show of greatest hits than a narrative film. The movie also focuses heavily upon his relationship with his first wife Josephine, and I found these parts of the film are the best written and more interesting. Kirby gives a solid performance, and it is in these more intimate scenes with Josephine that Phoenix delivers his best performances as Napoleon. Though even aspects of their relationship get glossed over, as the movie has to fit in Napoleon the Emperor and Napoleon the Conqueror alongside Napoleon the Lover. The movie packs a lot into 2.5 hours, yet still says very little. Juggling so many aspects of Bonaparte's life, the movie could have been better served focusing on a single aspect rather than so many, or narratively could have worked as a character study of the man himself. And while I feel this is what the movie in its current state is closest to being, this too falters due to Phoenix's less than charismatic lead. The movie may whet the appetite of those looking for a glimpse into the man Napoleon and just wanting the highlights of his career, but don't look for historical depth. Certainly I don't enter most movies looking for a history lesson, but Napoleon leaves you wanting more information and not in a good way. Frustratingly vague, I feel those familiar with the history will be turned off, and those who know nothing will gain next to nothing. I give Napoleon 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Wow. Okay, that's that. What's your name again? I forgot. Not Dag.
I'm going to tell you, I'll be honest with you. I remember Tag
You
after
don't remember it.
I have absolutely no clue
This is the
whatsoever
problem. You're like
what the first
WB.
name was.
Who doesn't remember the love of their own content and wants to just get rid of it.
Well, some characters I like to keep, like Brian, and
Brian.
others I'm like, that's just a one-off. I don't care. And it's lost to... If I'll have to. I mean, it's not lost to history, I guess. If it's in recording.
Yeah.
We've recorded it. So
We've preserved it.
if you watch the
I
episode,
won't remove it off of YouTube.
Please comment and let us know what I said.
Yeah.
Only the copyright holders of the review footage will keep us from being on YouTube.
Oh,
we should be back on there now. They'll probably get kicked after the show.
No. I
but
liked
yeah,
Napoleon better than I feel like. I mean, I gave it 2.5, but I liked it better than I think a lot of critics were kind of. I feel like it's a movie that people are receiving lukewarm. You either like it or you don't. I thought it was really like it's not Scott's best film. I feel like, but I did think like
he hasn't
it was
done that since American. What was it?
American Gangster was the
That's it,
last I think really great one he made, and then before that would have been Gladiator. I still don't think it quite hits those peaks. I just think there's certain issues with pacing in certain parts of the film. And things that I thought could have just been tweaked. But I mean, I really liked it as far as a film that kind of shows Napoleon as who he was. Maybe not so much all the historical details of his ascent. That's where some of my problems come in. Is I just feel like they gloss over a lot of things that I'm like, wait, I want to know more about that, or or the machinations of how like he shows him rise through the ranks, but you never really see like how that comes into play. It's just. I'm a general at this point, and then they're like, oh, we want you to help us do this, and we'll make you consult. And then it's like, now I'm being crowned emperor, and I'm like, I wanted to see a little bit more, and granted, it's a 2.5-hour movie. It's not something like The Crown or The Tudors where you have a whole series to really flesh that stuff out.
Yeah.
And maybe when Scott releases his 4-hour cut, that's the cut I'll love because
I know
there'll be
there
more
will
detail.
be.
Yeah,
He always has a director's cut.
I'll watch that cut, and if it's better, I will come back and be like, okay, the 4-hour cut's a 3-star, 3.5-star movie.
That's why when I watched the Snyder cut, I immediately knew Zack Snyder needs to be in charge of DC again.
But here's I talk about there's pacing issues, but part of that is because I think the slower moments don't have the depth, and I feel like the movie. It's weird to say a movie has pacing issues but needs to be longer because I feel like it's the added detail that it's needing. So if it was even a half hour longer, I think I would have given it that 3 stars because I just wanted just a little bit more. It's weird when your problem with the movies that's just not enough.
Yeah. No, I actually did side on the 3-star side. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. But just to echo kind of what you said about there's parts of the movie that really interested me, and it might be different for every viewer. There might be other things that they feel like was lacking, but there's things that interested me about his tactics and where he learned and what those tactics were, because I feel like you don't have Napoleon without his ingenious method of war. And I feel like he learned that from somewhere. He talks about the art of war, is mentioned in the film, and we know that he studied the art of war. But it's like I wanted to know more about, I wanted to see him planning these things.
Well, I read something about that, and this would have been more interesting in the movie too. Apparently, he wasn't so much of he was a good strategist, but they said it wasn't so much that he was so amazing as a strategist as much as he was incredible at improvisation. Like when things would not go according to the plan, he could devise a new plan off the bat.
Yeah, and that's amazing. That's interesting to me. Why wasn't that in the movie?
Exactly.
So that's the thing is like I just he pulls off these great successes, and he even says like I've brought in you thousands of successes, but it's like. I want to see where you came up with the idea to do that. Where did you come up with the idea to lead these people onto the ice only so that you could blow it up and drown everybody? I want to know how you devise these plans, and that's the one thing you don't really see is you never see him in the war room with his people trying to devise these plans, or even just him, because I know a lot of the stuff that he did keep kind of to himself because he didn't even want some of his own people knowing exactly what the plan was, because he was a very paranoid person. It was one of the things that I recently read. He even thought, like Alexander, that some of his own people were going to stab him in the back. So he didn't tell even some of his closest people what the plan actually was. Just do what I say. Like, I got a plan, just execute it like I say. But it's that was something that interested me, was the method to his madness, and it never really really showed that enough for me to be completely drawn into who he was or why he was as good as he was at devising these scenarios. And that was just something that completely lacked for me. I thought they spent plenty of time on him and what was her name? Josephine, but so little time on the war aspect. And I'm just like, he was a warmonger. This is a guy that he lived for war. And that's what I wanted to see.
And that's the weird thing too, is you don't really get a good sense of the time period that this takes place in. Like, they start off with the Marie Antoinette beheading, and you get an idea that there's unrest in France, and obviously he's climbing the ranks. They show a glimpse at the beginning of what you think is going to be somewhat of the political intrigue with the overthrowing of I'm forgetting his name, the political figure, but it was actually something that I think I told you, Keith, after you came over to record. There were times where it was like they would set up a typical movie plot that you would need to have to kind of stir up why he would need to go to the next battle or why the next major event was going to happen. And then they would just kind of name drop somebody from history, almost as if like, oh, yeah, this actually happened. See, we're going to throw in a legit name now so that you realize this is a key event. Yeah. And there's just times where I'm like, it's more cleverly done when it's well written. And there were just times where the script itself, in terms of dialogue, or even in the way it carried itself from event to event, just collapsed for me, which is why I ultimately settled on 2.5 as well. Because if that would have been just enough stronger, I almost think it could have gotten away with the amount of events that it covered in the film. It just needed better writing. And even there's just little bitty things, whether it was, you kind of see his inner circle surrounding him and coaxing him to build him up to become king and to become emperor. And it's like, oh, are they kind of like he's a simpleton and they're just kind of, building up his ego because they see him as the Trojan horse that kind of, do their will and they want to impose that on. You get a sense of that, but oh no, he's really the mastermind and he comes up with these plots, and you kind of see him throughout the movie become smarter and wiser to how these things are carried out. So you're like, okay, no, he's not just a pawn. He's not being, a puppet being pulled by the puppet strings. But also then there's other moments where it was like his brother and they run out of the room when they're starting the coup, as it's aptly titled in the movie and in history. And then when that happens, like they get outside and all the soldiers are standing around before they rush in, and the brother's like, if my brother is to really threaten the throne of France and threaten the government, I will cut his head off. Like basically to say, I'm loyal to France and so is he, and I'm loyal enough that I'm going to betray my family. And then the army's just like, good enough for me. Let's go in and defend them. Just there's little things like that were a little too on the nose that I didn't think were clever enough that it kept me invested in the reality of what was trying to be portrayed. But in terms of scope and grandeur with the battles, especially that type of warfare, I mean, again, we've seen Gladiator, we've seen these other movies. It's not that they weren't good. They were. It's just that there wasn't anything that really stuck the landing in terms of something I hadn't seen before that made me really think, oh, this is something you have to see. You have to see to be amazed
for
by.
me, it's kind of similar to like some of the Asteroid City with Wes Anderson. It wasn't that it's done well.
True.
It wasn't done well. It is absolutely done well. But Asteroid City wasn't anything from Wes Anderson that I hadn't seen before. Same thing here. It's Ridley Scott. Have you seen I mean, the forest shots, the battles,
the same
fights,
force they're using.
But they look. It looks amazing. It's incredible. Like I'm not going to gripe and say it looks bad. Like it's amazing. But it is. It's if you've seen a Ridley Scott film, then you've seen pretty much. I get your point there.
Yeah, but like we've been saying though, Ridley Scott has definitely done better. Even as we keep bringing up the movie Gladiator, because I feel like it's one of his masterpiece films. Yes. And it's like even in Gladiator, you're talking about how the French army was loyal to him, and they knew that. I mean, he knew that, but they don't really show that loyalty in the movie other than, like you said, he says, be on my side. And there's the one scene where he does escape Elba and he comes back and they meet him in the woods. And it's just like, fight with me. And 3 or 4 of them say it. And then the next thing you know, all of them say it. But in Gladiator, they show you why
builds that
why they were
camaraderie,
loyal. Yeah, he walks amongst them, and even later on in the film, she tells him
Josephine?
No, in Gladiator, I can't think of her name either. But the
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, she tells him, like, Maximus, if you lead they will follow you.
Yeah.
You're their leader.
Yep.
Over Caesar. And so it's like, they showcase the reasons the people were so loyal to him. And the army was loyal to him. They would have jumped on hot coals for him, but they never really give you any inkling as to why.
They don't have the depth
right,
there to
there's
show,
one scene where he walks through the crowd and hands some bread out to a couple of them, and it's just like, oh, so that one little pat on the back and a couple pieces of bread, they love him.
Like, right,
you can just here's
some stale toast. That's what we feed prisoners.
right.
Well, and especially at that time when he is up against all odds, and they're facing insurmountable what seems to be this harsh winter and things that they're going up against forces that probably will take
every
them out.
battle. Even at the end of the film, it shows you the statistics of how many people died in each battle.
Yeah,
and it doesn't tell you how many. What it tells you that they won, but it also is like 28,000, 44,000, 80,000, 110,000
in
he
one
constantly.
day.
He lost more people every time. Yet the soldiers still went into battle with him, knowing there was a good chance more of them were going to die in this battle. There has to be a reason that they were willing to go with him.
Exactly.
And they don't show that.
And they really don't get into a lot of like the depth of the political aspects or his aspects on the field of war. I feel like the best done parts are him and Josephine, which is fine, but it's like then choose a focus. Because everything done with Josephine was really done well. If you were going to also do the military and political aspects, then you do need more time to flesh them out just as much as you fleshed out Josephine. Otherwise, just focus on one or the other. Or, I told Brandon, and I mentioned in the review, if this is supposed to just be more of a character study to show like the type of person Napoleon was, and the focus isn't on the political and the war or his love life, then you need to have someone a lot more... It's not that Joaquin Phoenix did a bad job. I don't think he did a bad job, but I didn't think he was compelling enough in the role to be a character study either.
There was nothing in his performance that I immediately thought, oh, this is a standout. This is how I'm going to now envision.
And it's not, I think, because
Napoleon
of him. I think it's because of the writing and direction, because they weren't focused solely on him either. There was so much that they were trying to focus on, whether it be Josephine, whether it be, okay, now here's this event in war and here's this battle. So it's like there was so much focus on so many pieces that nothing really stood out.
Agreed. No, I agree. And it's, again, it's weird because I did enjoy aspects of the film, and overall walking out of the theater, it's kind of the same feeling I had walking out of Hunger Games. It was like I was not impressed by it, but I also didn't hate it. Like I expected.
I think I like this more than Hunger Games, but I get you.
And
the more I'm thinking about it, I'm dropping it down to 2.5.
But it's not a bad
because
film.
I really did think. Hearing what Brandon's saying, it's like with Hunger Games, I went into that film expecting it to be bad,
right? Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was halfway decent. I went into this movie expecting it to be awesome,
and it's
expecting it to be Gladiator, and I was kind of let down a little bit.
A return to Ridley Scott, in the form of Gladiator, and that's, and I hate to say it because look, it's a 1-to-1 comparison because it's the same director, but even it's easy to take someone like Maximus and you sympathize with him because of the atrocities against him and his family, perpetrated by Joaquin Phoenix's character in that. It's Commodus. Is that his name in that one?
Commodus.
But he's betrayed, or he's completely, his family is slaughtered. Yeah. But we don't need a deep dive on Maximus and his love for his wife and his child.
Now, see, that's a movie his acting was brilliant in. Not that he was bad in this.
Yeah.
I just felt like there was parts of this where I felt like he was kind of whiny, and I'm like, I don't know, is Napoleon that soft spoken? Because the way his
he was a roller coaster. Though in the movie, that's what I didn't like about is I couldn't pin down who he was,
and that's where, to me, that was one of the negatives is my ignorance of not knowing Napoleon and a historical figure.
The movie does not help if you don't know anything about Napoleon.
Because it's kind of lukewarm in terms of what area it wants to tread in terms of what it wants to convey Napoleon is.
I think that is what frustrates me most about the movie is that because I know some stuff, but not much. Not like going to watch something like Patriot or something about the American Revolution.
Or even Lincoln.
Lincoln. Well, actually, I would compare this to Lincoln as far as like Spielberg's historicals. Mm-hmm. Like Lincoln and this, I think, to me, are on the same level. You got Spielberg, who Lincoln's good, but it's not his best. This is good, but it's not Scott's best. And just like
I did enjoy Lincoln far more than this.
I think I would agree, but I still don't. I think I only gave Lincoln 3.
Agreed, but it's weird because I think most people also expected Lincoln to be more on the war front and not so much the political behind the scenes.
But that's what I liked about it.
But that's
Lincoln.
what
It's not called the Civil War.
Yes.
Right. That's what intrigued me
But
about
what
it.
frustrates me about this is the same thing that I think frustrates like you all with like Marvel and not reading the comics or anything is like if you haven't read the comics, you don't understand the Marvel movies. If you don't already know the history of Napoleon, you don't understand every aspect of this movie. And I think that's a problem when you're making a movie. Yeah, like if you just expect everyone to know the history, not everyone is going to. And if your movie doesn't explain within itself what's going on and you just rely on, well, most people will know what's happening because they know history.
It's like watching the highlights of a sporting event, but you don't know anything about that sport.
Yes,
it's like we just saw the highlights of Napoleon's life, but we don't know anything about him, so those highlights don't matter to me.
I'm like
100%.
Okay, yes, exactly.
That's a great way to explain it.
And that's how I felt watching the movie. It's like I like this, but I wish I understood.
There's just no depth to what I'm watching.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even the depth that's provided from the Josephine angle and his relationship with her is still so far removed from everything else going on that it's like, okay, we know this is one side of him, but what is it we're focusing on with regard to Napoleon? And again, that is part and parcel, I guess one of the negatives you could say, well, that's the hardest thing to do when you're focusing on a historical figure in this magnitude in a 2.5 hour time frame. And again, that's why I'm willing to give a 4-hour cut a try.
I'll watch it.
But even then,
as long as it doesn't meander.
Well, and I was going to say, and even if the 400 hour, if the 4 hour,
whoa, you got a massive documentary going on.
Yeah, exactly. But even if the 4-hour cut is not, I would say, I don't think it could be any worse because again, I enjoyed watching this one.
Yeah.
Walking out of the movie, it was like, okay, that was enjoyable, better than what I expected. But if I see the 4-hour cut and it does drag, or it doesn't add any more than what I got from this, that's where I'm going to end up saying, okay, well then he really didn't have any clear direction.
And that was my problem with Killers of the Flower Moon is that it was 3.5 hours of material that not all was necessary. Like, some of it I was like, you could have cut a lot of this material out.
Yeah,
I hate to say it. I know Sean hasn't seen it. I feel bad.
Well, it's like I think this one needed to be longer and that one needed to be shorter.
Yeah. Oppenheimer was, the same length, and that's a movie where there were times throughout, not very many, but there were definitely times in that film that I was bored with what I was seeing, whereas with this movie, which is it's completely different. I'm just saying, it's a biopic or a movie about a single person, and it's like I was much more intrigued and interested in this movie than I was in Oppenheimer.
It's weird.
And I think that may be just due to the storytelling.
Yes,
and
I got there, and I think part of that was because and again, it was heavily teased, but I think everybody in Oppenheimer was looking forward to that A-bomb shot.
Bomb,
and it just did not pay off.
And when that didn't pay off, a lot of people were disappointed. Yeah.
But also, I will say, even with this, in regards to Napoleon, there were times in the beginning of the film when he is with Josephine that it kind of goes back to the not knowing what side of Napoleon we're going to get, or he's not a well-rounded character. I'm interested to see that when I watch it again, if I like those scenes better. Because when I first saw them, I thought they kind of dragged a little because there were long pauses. I know they were trying to let, Scott was trying to let it sink in a little bit, but there were times where I'm like, I don't know what the hell emotion you're trying to convey here. No. I don't know what you mean by these long pauses and what these two mean for each other. I really am not getting a good sense of their relationship.
For a long time, it was hard to be like, does he actually care for her? Is he just possessive, like, you're my thing? And I mean, by the end of the movie, you get a sense of what she means to him. But for throughout a lot of the movie, I was just like, do you all hate each other or do you all actually love each other? I really don't know.
Right, it's supposed to be this complicated relationship. But they made it way too freaking complicated to the point where you can't read it.
Well, I was going to say, exactly. They just never clarified exactly what emotions are. As much clarity as there is, even though it's poorly written in the, I'll cut off my brother's head, and that's how staunchly I stand with France. It's like, okay, that could have been written way better. But at least we know what you're trying to sell there. Yeah. Throughout most of their relationship, at least through the first third of the film, it's kind of all over to the place where you're like, I don't know what you're trying to convey here. Please clarify this. Thankfully, I think by the end of the film, it's much more clearer, especially with the way it ends. But at least if you know that going in, you can better anticipate it and maybe like it better.
Like I said, it's not his best movie, but I do think it's the best one he's done in the last several years.
By far.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so misleading is a lot of the trailers that I did cut up, almost every single one of them had the acclaimed director of Alien, Gladiator, and American Gangster, like all of his, The Martian, all of his
It's
big
probably
movies.
the best one since American Gangster, just not as good.
But it's just so funny
I
because
forgot that he did The Martian.
I
completely forgot that.
He was nominated for Best Director.
I know.
This was
forgot
better.
all
This
about
was
it.
better than The Martian.
Oh yeah.
Oh, hands down.
This was
Yeah.
better than House of Gucci, and I haven't seen The Last Duel, but
Sean,
It was better than The Last Duel.
It was,
so,
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah,
I just
so
watched Robin Hood the other night just for the heck of it.
yeah,
Because
Better than that?
Ridley Scott did that, and it's like, I think maybe another issue of the film for me was the fact that he chose Joaquin Phoenix, who's a fantastic actor. But it's like, okay, so you got Russell Crowe as the Gladiator, then you've got him as Robin Hood. Now you've got Joaquin Phoenix as Caesar.
Yeah.
Now you've got him as Napoleon.
Yeah.
I'm all for recycling actors into your films if they are completely different people.
Yes.
But if you're gonna use an actor that is kind of, it can be the same person in everything that he's in, which is not Joaquin Phoenix as much as it is Russell Crowe.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
always Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
He's Noah. He's Gladiator.
Russell Crowe doesn't
he's Robin
have
Hood.
range. He
Yeah,
doesn't.
he doesn't have the range. Joaquin can do better with that, but I still kept thinking of him from Gladiator while watching him as Napoleon.
Well, and also when you've seen movies like Joker or you've seen
yeah,
movies
you can
like
see what he does.
Signs.
Beau
I
is
mean,
Afraid. That movie.
Beau was Afraid,
Messed
yes.
up movie.
That was
but his acting in that is just
amazing.
Fantastic.
His fear that he shows in that movie is phenomenal.
And that's the thing.
it's
Exactly. We know his range.
Yes.
So
yeah.
when you know that range going into it and you get what
I
you get in
didn't
this,
see much range in this movie.
you
No,
get
there-
disappointed.
there wasn't.
Yeah, you're disappointed walking out because you realize what he can accomplish and he just doesn't. And again,
It was still also better than Exodus.
poor writing.
I just wanted to
Did
throw
Ridley
that one in
Scott
there.
do Exodus?
Yes, he did Exodus
Oh
as well.
wow, I forgot
He's
about
had-
that one too, man.
He does a crap ton of movies.
He has
Kingdom of Heaven is genuinely that's a good movie.
Yeah,
you gotta check
Kingdom
that
of
one
Heaven.
out.
Which one is that? That's not Orlando.
That's
Bloom.
Orlando
Yes,
Bloom,
okay,
yeah.
right.
It's funny because after American Gangster, it's like hit or miss. It's like every other movie is like decent, bad, decent, bad.
But he nails the middle. Nails the Middle Ages, dude.
Yeah.
he can nail that, and that's why I thought this is awesome. He's doing a time period that he's never done before.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be even so just much better than it really was.
I mean,
but
again, cinematography was.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as far as
Freaking
production value,
design,
Yeah,
the costumes, the
opening
man.
scene. I mean, that's one other thing. Just real quick, my last little jab at it.
Yeah,
we're
get
gonna
it.
Be done.
It was, it was interesting because it's like you see again Marie Antoinette coming out, and of course it's the slow mo of her coming to meet her end.
Yes, you got a
And
head
the
choppy.
Guillotine.
I thought it was
Spoiler
interesting
alert,
that you hear
they cut
this
her head off.
very French music playing in the background.
Yeah.
And this whole scene play out, and it's very authentically, supposed to set the tone. And then we cut to the political, like their Congress, and the guy starts speaking in English, and I'm like, not even a French accent.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't even try, nothing
Yeah.
conveyed, just straight up speaks in an English accent, and I'm like, okay, that took me out of the moment.
Well,
He had a lot of English
the
actors.
music,
Yeah.
the music that you're talking about kind of it didn't take me out of the moment, but that was a much more modern music than what they had back then.
See, I don't
like
know.
if you
I don't know
listen
about
to
it.
that music, there were like, I mean, I'm not saying there were instruments that they
It
didn't
sounded
have, but
like it was more
sounded
modern.
more like the French lady singing in Saving Private Ryan that they're listening to on the record player when before the final battle. Edith Piaf or whatever they say she's singing, then Oppum tells them this is what she's singing about. Like that's the music that you were hearing in Napoleon, which I'm we're talking about hundreds of years. I mean 500 years difference. Yeah.
Well,
it was
no,
17.
Yeah,
it was
no, it was
1789.
1789. It was
So
around the
three-
American Revolution.
200
so it was
years.
only about,
So
it's
yeah,
a year.
but yeah,
difference.
it sounded more modern than the time period the movie was.
Yeah,
based
I'm not
on.
sure
I might
what
be
the
wrong,
track is,
but it just sounded.
And that's the thing. He might have chosen that intentionally, but it may be a piece from that time. I didn't mind what he was conveying. At least he was trying to set the tone of being in France at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
And at least as soon as we get out of that scene, and then immediately the first thing you hear is someone who doesn't even have a French accent. Right. And I was just like, okay, that's a little jarring.
Well, it's the same. I told you the same thing people made fun of Valkyrie for, because it's supposed to be
100%,
all German soldiers. Then you have Tom Cruise with a completely American accent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. No. All right. Let's move on to our headlines for this evening. We're gonna dive right into it.
Valkyrie, I haven't seen that in forever. I'm gonna have to watch that.
It's not a bad movie.
It's not a bad movie, but
exactly
the English
what you're
accents,
talking
because those are like British English accents,
Yes.
and I'm like, these are German soldiers, and they sound like they're from the UK.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's weird because when you see someone like, I just watched it recently, so it popped in my head. But when you watch someone like Tarantino making Glorious Bastards,
Yes,
and he's very quick to portray authentically from whether it's Christoph Waltz brilliance performance to even the
they speak English,
bastards
but they still
themselves.
have German accents. Like they have accents of whatever country they're from.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like it just, to me, that does speak volumes. And I think it's like, okay, we know they're good enough actors and actresses out there. I mean, you talk about freaking Hollywood being obsessed with DEI crap anymore. Yeah. Like, can't you get actors and actresses from that native country?
If only gay people can play gay people and trans can play trans and this and that, then how come only French people can't play the French now? And only like, why are we not just dividing this down to listen, only what you are like can you play now? Like everybody has to be, unless you're a white person, then anybody can play you.
Well, of course.
If you're a white man, anyone can play you.
You have to be played by a black person. But no, let's talk about our headlines. We're starting off with the bottom of the list, and that was what we started out talking about a little bit at the beginning of the show. Wish becomes another Disney flop. Real quickly, just wanted to mention it because it is a huge deal.
I probably won't ever watch it. So
same. I mean, and there's been nothing but flops for Disney this year.
Well, I've already read everything I need to about it, and it's funny because like I knew like from the outset this is supposed to be like their 100th anniversary movie, and it was like the origin of the wishing star. But I don't know if y'all read the one article about how this movie almost tries to make like a Disney shared universe. And all the things that happen in this movie with the wishing star about like ties to Pinocchio, Cinderella, Snow White, because it's almost like, well, this is the origin of the wishing star. Spoiler alert for anybody who cares about the movie. Apparently she becomes a fairy godmother and is dressed just like the fairy godmother from Cinderella at the end. The villain gets turned into a magic mirror, which is like the mirror from Snow White. So literally they tried to like, this is the origin story of where all the wishes in every Disney original movie came from. And it completely flopped and failed. Yeah. It's like it's like
that's abysmal.
That is a horrible look for Disney. Like this is supposed to be this movie that brings everybody's nostalgia from every Disney movie from the classics, and you can't do it because you do things like the live action Snow White where you actually crap all over the originals, so nobody cares.
Well, one of the things that I read too on Common Sense Media was that surprised me because, and I think this is just Disney's done this to themselves. They've shot themselves in the foot. This movie is not as woke as most of their other content.
Oh, I've read that.
So it's like,
other than like the characters are all very like they're
diverse.
Different ethnicities.
Yes, But other than that, there's not a lot of the stuff that's in Lightyear and Strange World and all of these other movies. That's not there. There's no LGBTQ crap. There's none of that stuff. So it's like the one film that Disney's going to release that parents should want to take their kids to, they didn't. And it's like because they've been burned by every other film leading up to it.
Well, I think
it's like they can't even make good wholesome content anymore, and people still want to go see it because they are so
they
don't trust them. They don't trust them.
I think that's kind of like just with the Marvels, where I told you all. I think with those reshoots, they removed it. I think that is Disney going back to more subtly woke. Like instead of like shoehorning stuff in like with the other Marvel movies, it's like, okay, well, we'll not do that in this movie. We'll just have the diverse cast. Same thing with Wish. We'll just have the diverse cast. It's like we're offending too many people, so now we're going to go back to being maybe more subtle about it. But that doesn't mean we stop the trend. We just have to figure out other ways to keep
they'll
sneaking
fall back
it in.
into it because eventually that loud minority is going to say there's not enough representation.
Right.
You've taken all the representation out of these films. And so they'll put it back in.
Clearly, look at the Rotten Tomatoes score. I mean, obviously, audience scores it's like 81%, so it's not fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's a rotten score compared to critics. Critics are rating it 50%.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting because I'm like,
it ain't woke enough.
but now you have that
Probably.
issue. Now you have the issue where
don't like this movie.
The only ones that promote from the critic side, the Disney movies that are coming out are the ones who are overtly woke.
Yeah.
And then you have the audience scores dip way low on those. And now it's vice versa. It's the opposite. But then the problem you have is the reason it's even in the 80s is because not very many people are seeing it. So then you have low turnout at the actual theater from the customers who are the ones that are consuming your content.
Well, and the funny thing is, all the reviews I've read really haven't complained about woke or lack of woke as much as that everything's just so milquetoast and cookie cutter Disney, which is part of the Marvel's problem. Outside of the silliness, is just
it's every movie's problem.
Every movie.
Nothing is willing to commit and stand on anything. You can't. I mean, the problem is I was just watching The Office and I'm rewatching it, and there's every single character has pros and cons.
Yes, and
it's like from as diverse a cast as it is. Every single person can have a pro and a flaw.
Well, they have character flaws. That's what makes characters interesting.
No character of any diverse background anymore has a flaw. They're always the hero. They never have any. I mean, we were just joking about it. I don't want to give too many spoilers out there for viewers who haven't seen it. But Doctor Who premiered recently, and it has been riddled with woke nonsense. And of course, it hits all of the hallmarks of the messages that it wants to browbeat you with.
It took all the check marks.
But it's just interesting because it's like, oh yeah, and all of these characters that somehow not only beat home the woke messaging come from the diverse cast that it just they seemingly happen to have no flaws themselves.
Well, and that actually, from what I've read, even the villain in this, which they talk about, is lackluster. They said like, he's not really a villain because Lord forbid anybody be
you can't
that
be evil
either.
anymore.
They said like, I mean, he is the bad person and his motivations are wrong, but it's almost like they said like when they get into like the songs and the it's like they're not iconic. I mean, you remember villains like Ursula, Scar, Jafar. It's like
Scar actually kills his brother.
He kills Mufasa.
He kills his brother, and it's like, yes, he's evil.
Clayton shoots. I mean, in Tarzan, he gets hung. I mean, it's like you have evil people who get their comeuppance, and it's like you can't do that anymore.
Gaston falls off the freaking castle because he's willing to just keep going after Beast.
And again, iconic villain because they have motivation. They're not just evil for evil's sake either, because that can be boring. But they don't have good motivations. It's like every villain now has to be a tragic villain. Like, well. They're only like this because of this.
They're a bully because they were bullied.
It's like Gaston was not necessarily like a evil person, but he was conceited, he was stuck up, he only cared about himself, and he was determined to kill something he didn't understand, and he got his comeuppance. And it's like those are character flaws that make someone he's not a good person.
And led
he is
to their demise.
He's a legitimate bad person, not because something tragic happened to him, but because he's just a crap person.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. And again, this is not just affecting Disney and Marvel. This is affecting the film industry entirely. And the problem is that unless it's the evil white man, because that seems to be the
which I thought they were going for in this movie.
I did too.
But apparently, even he's not as iconically like villainous as what. According to critics, I haven't seen the movie.
But it just is interesting because it's like there's this blanket. Now, again, it has to be a tragic hero or a tragic circumstance when it comes to even the villain. You can't just have a bad guy.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Or it has to be so milquetoast that we don't know any details. We just know, bad person over there, we get rid of them.
Maleficent,
and that's it.
Mistress of all evil. And then when they do the live action, well, she's like this because of how they mistreated her. It's like, well, then why is she, like, that's not the mistress of all evil. Like, she's literally evil.
Yep. No, exactly. And it's a problem in cinema in general that it's a really bad period right now that a funk that we have to get out of. And unfortunately, it's just not changing anytime soon. You hope the box office numbers are proving that this is not a winning strategy, and we're going to get a little bit more. I mean, we're going to be reviewing it probably next week or at least at some point throughout this month of December. But Lady Ballers just dropped from Daily Wire, that trailer coming out December 1st. And they point blank say this is a movie, a comedy that would have been made 20 years ago, but it won't be made today. It can't be made today by Hollywood's current standards because heaven forbid you actually touch on not only a taboo subject, but one that they uphold as the holy grail of subject matters that has to be reinforced.
It reminded me of something Trey Parker and Matt Stone would make, like basketball.
Yes.
I was like,
so many people were comparing it to that.
South Park,
or to basketball.
Yeah.
They were saying this
same
is this
creators, make
right?
both,
and they were
yeah.
saying this is this generation's basketball.
Yes.
And it's like,
Well, I think it's like The Ringer.
yeah, that
It's
too.
like pretending to be a handicapped person to win the handicap Olympics.
Yes.
Like, come on.
And what's funny is there's so many people on the opposite side of the aisle who are now saying this movie's just terrible and evil and why do you hate so much and why do you and it's like, but what's funny is if this movie had come out in the 90s, it just would have been another movie.
Oh, if it was making
People
fun
would
of Donald Trump, it would
it
would be amazing.
But like Brandon said, if it had
love
come out in the 90s or before the 90s, everybody would have just thought it was another raunchy comedy or something making fun of this idea of men trying to play women's basketball. Juana Man.
That's,
I mean,
people were actually
yes.
portraying or were comparing it to that as well.
But so if that movie's okay, which it wouldn't be in today's standard, I'm sure somebody would be like, well, they were ignorant back then. They shouldn't have made that movie.
Well, again, that's why we have to have disclaimers at the beginning of our movies. Thankfully, Disney can do that now.
Yeah.
Or we have to be able to pull stuff off of the shelf.
I hope it has a trigger warning at the beginning of the movie. I think that would be even
that
funnier.
would be actually pretty
Yes,
good.
Yeah,
They
put a
that'd be
trigger
great.
warning. That'd be great.
That would be hilarious. But no, look, we do have to write course. This is how you start to do it, is Daily Wire not only taking risks, but blatantly coming out and saying that this is what the people want. You all as Hollywood studios trying to be the gatekeepers of that's what I think is baffling and what most people roll their eyes at is you act like you all are these moral arbiters that are pretending to care about the betterment of society when really you're just wanting us to consume everything you create and trying to sit here and say, well, we know what's best for the society at large. It's like, no, you don't get to decide that. And we're going to tell you with our money and how we spend it. And instead, of actually having it be brought up to the masses and up, it is up to us. It's up to us to choose where we spend our dollar. Mm-hmm. And we're not spending it anymore on this dribble. So it's going to take time to write the course, and it may take a couple of major studios to just completely tank. Real quick on another franchise that may be on the chopping block soon. This is kind of working into our bigger topic of the night in the discussion, but Scream 7, complete reboot in order. Now that we have Maria,
they haven't done it.
It's technically not a reboot.
I can't remember.
Maria Bennett. Or
No,
something like
not
that.
Maria.
Barrera
Bennett. I was like,
no,
is this
Melissa
Tony Bennett?
Yeah, Maria Barrera and Jenna Ortega are now out. It's not really a reboot if you're bringing, because they're talking about bringing Nev Campbell and maybe Patrick Dempsey back if they can get him. And it's like, well, that's still a continuation because they were both in the original series. Like he was in 3. That's who she ends up with. So I'm like. It's funny, though, because I called that. I was like, well, if you don't have either stars, what are you going to do? Throw a bunch of money and beg Nev Campbell to come back? Well, yeah, because what other options do you have unless you do a complete clean reboot?
That's what Marvel's going to do with the Avengers.
Oh,
That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, because
let's bring back the fan favorites.
we don't know how to actually fix it. The problem's in the writing and the direction, so we're just going to bring back nostalgia, because if we pump enough nostalgia into stuff, maybe people won't notice the bad writing and direction.
See, they wouldn't say that about this, though. They would say that this one was just thrown out of left field because of the political drama going.
The movies weren't good before they decided to drop out. Before
one
one was fired and the other decided to drop out. So.
Well, and even then, it's like, it's not that they were terrible, but we gave them both lukewarm, favorable reviews.
I mean, I didn't hate them, but no, like,
but there was no way they stood up to the original 3. We've been saying
they feel
that.
unnecessary, and that's the thing. It's like now that you have both stars missing, it feels extra unnecessary to make a 7th. Other than you're going to bring Nev Campbell back to what? What plot are you wrapping up? Her plot was wrapped up in the 3rd, and then it was wrapped up in the 4th, and then it was wrapped up again in the 5th. It's like, how many times are you going to drag her back to wrap it up?
That's right.
It's like, that's why you moved on from her to having these stars in the last movie, and now that they're gone.
Was to make it a franchise.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And it's like, and the whole thing was leaning towards her whole connection with Skeet Ulrich and her like being psychotic too. And it's like, what are you going to do? Just write that off as she went crazy and now she's dead or something. I don't know.
Yeah, she's going
to
be the
be
killer.
Ghostface.
Yeah.
That would,
but then you can't even do that because then the reveal
that's
doesn't
kind
happen
of a
until
slap
the
in the
end.
face too. I feel like, and you can't reveal that to the end.
Yeah.
What would be funny, but is if because she was having the psychotic thing with Skeet Ulrich, if you secretly made her the villain at the end. But I mean, that would require her to have to be there, and she's fired. So,
or what it could really end up being is she is Ghostface, and then at the end, the big reveal is
they never fired her.
No, it's a whole different alternative universe.
Oh Lord, it's a multiverse.
It's a multiverse.
I'm so tired of multiverses.
I mean, let's just throw it all in there.
Hollywood's just like multiverse everything now. It's like, good Lord.
That's how you can make everything into a franchise. Look, we're gonna be keeping watch, but ultimately, it's like we weren't too thrilled with the last 2 installments. Yeah, they made a lot of money. We knew they were making sequels, but who cares? It's another Scream movie. But that does lead us into our main topic of this evening.
Yeah, I like this topic.
Franchises versus originals. I came across an article. I think it was Variety. I'm going to pull it up here. Or no, it was
Deadline.
And Mr. Christopher Nolan came out talking about, or he was recently talking about franchises or originals and how a lot of people seem to be getting fatigued on franchises. And what is the real, what's the real solution here? So I want to read a little bit. I'm just going to read this article.
They're just mainly comments and stuff, but yeah.
It's not very long.
No.
He said, I think there's always a balance in Hollywood between established titles that can ensure a return audience and giving people more of what they want. That's always been a big part of the economics of Hollywood. And it pays a lot of other pays for a lot of other types of films to be made and distributed. That's one of the big thrills of going to the movies. Seeing the trailer for a movie you've never heard of, or type of movie that you haven't seen or haven't seen in a long time. Something new, something fresh, he added. A healthy ecosystem in Hollywood is about balancing those two things, and it always has been. Then he continues, they're not realistic in terms of how we will watch movies. I'm sorry, this is about the filmmaker touching on the overanalyzing of audiences' reactions in particular types of films. He said they're not realistic in terms of how we will watch movies. We all watch movies with different expectations for what kind of movie it is. We all go to the movies wanting to see something different than we saw the week before. You have horror movies and comedies and documentaries. Though the movie screen can be anything. And so the more variety we have, the more interesting films being made. The better it is for all of us moviegoers and as industry professionals. And then he ends on this point. It's got to come from the filmmakers themselves. And you'll have to and you'll have, the Safdie brothers, and you'll have Chris Nolan. You know what I mean, and hit them from all sides.
That quote's from Scorsese.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is Scorsese. My bad, because obviously Christopher Nolan's not pulling a meta and talking about himself.
Yeah.
But he said, hit them from all sides and don't give up. Let's see what you've got. Get out there and do it. Go reinvent. Don't complain about it, but it's true because we've got to save cinema.
Yeah, that was the quote. Nolan was responding to that specific Scorsese's quote. I do agree with him. Though it's something I think we've always said. It's like, yeah, blockbusters pay for the smaller movies. But I think what he mentioned something that really stood out to me. And now he was talking about, like, not just the healthy balance, but he said, like, it's on, the directors to create the different things. He said the more variety we have, the more interesting films being made. And that's the point I think matters most, is because I feel like we are lacking a lot of variety at the moment because Hollywood's only focusing on the big franchise films. I agree completely with what he said. You do need both. Like, I don't want to see franchise movies go away entirely. There's a reason people love franchises. But when you turn everything into a franchise, and not just, a trilogy, but a whole multiverse, like we're talking about with Disney and Warner Brothers and Godzilla, and Universal tried their monster universe with Frankenstein and Dracula and
the Mummy.
Yeah, Ghostbusters doesn't need to be a massive franchise. It's like some things are okay being smaller, some things are okay being one-offs, just one movie. And it's just getting old.
Part of some of the draw, I completely agree. And part of the draw of some of these being franchises is that they come out years apart from one another.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're not revisiting it every couple of years just because, Scream had a major success, we got to give them more.
Yeah. And then right after we had just 1 year later came Scream 6 after 5. And it's like it's 7 would have 2 if not for the strikes and the fact that their actresses have now quit.
Yep.
Two of the biggest movies in the last few years have been Top Gun Maverick, a film that was 30 years from its original, and Avatar 2, which was how many years? From the original?
It was 10
or 12 years.
Over 10, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you've got Top Gun was never meant to be a franchise, but they did turn it into,
and technically
they gave
it's still not.
It's not. They gave it a sequel, but I understand. But again, you have something that people enjoyed 30 years ago, they come back for it, and it was a huge success. Avatar was the same thing. I think I think as we talked about with Avatar, if he starts releasing a movie every year
You don't
for
care
the next,
anymore.
then we are going to lose interest in Avatar. It's not going to be the thrill of returning to Pandora that it was 10 years after we saw it last.
I don't remember what article I was reading, but they specifically mentioned that about Star Wars, is that Star Wars used to be an event, even when the prequels came out. And when the sequels came out, the reason everybody was so excited because it had been so many years since the prequels.
Well, and even the prequels.
It's no longer an event now. It's every other month.
99 was episode 1.
Yes.
And those were based on knowing it was going to be a new trilogy.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was a prequel trilogy. And even then, the episode 2 and 3 they came out 2 years apart from one another.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like the fact that they weren't even yearly on that cycle. I mean, honestly, the first one that I can think that did it successfully was Lord of the Rings. They came out a year apart from one another.
And that's a little different
but
because of the
even then-
nature of the film.
Exactly.
The nature of the story.
And they were all shot at the same time. They were all edited a year apart from one another.
Same thing
and
with,
they all came out in cohesion as to tell one story.
Kill Bill was the same way. There wasn't, I don't think there was even a full year in between those two movies. But again, they were shot as one movie.
One that failed was The Matrix.
Yeah.
The Matrix was a huge success. They brought out Reloaded, I think maybe 2 or 3 years after the original, and then Revolutions came
Out like a year
came
after.
out
Yeah.
literally a year. No, it was like 6 months.
Yeah, not even
Reloaded
that.
came out
Yeah.
in like December. Revolutions came out in I,
I
think
didn't
it was,
realize that.
It was,
I thought they
Was
were
it,
years
was
apart.
it Pirates? I think
Pirates did the same thing.
Then one several years later, 2, and then a year after 2 was the
Not
third
even
one,
a year.
right?
It was
Oh,
like
wow.
6 months.
Yeah, because they filmed it back to back, and it's like
Like Dead Man's Chest came out in the summer. Actually, it was about a year
Yeah.
apart because it came out in like July, I want to say, of 1 year, and then like in May
Well,
of the
even-
next
even
year
when you-
was at World's End.
even Avengers didn't. When you go from Infinity War to Endgame, they had Ant-Man and Captain Marvel in between. It wasn't like this immediate, like there was still about a year gap or longer between those two movies.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, because you build anticipation and you build something like worth going to see. When you just churn out like a new Star Wars series or a new Marvel series every quarter, it's no longer special, and you lose interest.
Yeah, and again, the same can be said. I think that's why I would definitely say I agree with Nolan's perspective here. Is it always has been about the healthy balance,
Yeah.
not because it's like again, and I think he's kind of adding some levity here to Scorsese's comments.
yeah.
Whereas Scorsese's coming at it from these are the films I want to create, and I want to embark on a new journey each time, and I'm going to put out films, which it's still funny because you can definitely lump like Casino and Goodfellas and The Irishman. They all kind of fit into that mobster flick type movie. That's what he does. The Departed.
It's like you're making original films, but they all fit a similar mold.
They're all
Yeah, yeah.
still a very similar genre.
And not to make Scorsese does it well, but yeah.
But it's interesting to say that even if that's what he says he's pursuing and he's making those different types of films, there's still something to be said about not only the franchise films that support it, but there is something to be said about, I mean, this is what was great about the early 90s and throughout most of the 90s, the crazy action flicks we would get. Part of what made them fun were the popcorn flicks. It was like we didn't care if it was going to be stupid fun.
Yeah.
Part of it was enjoying that stupid fun for the sake of going to the movie theater and not realizing you have to have an intense drama every single time you show up. It's the same reason that I love some of the old classic Will Ferrell comedies.
Oh, yeah.
The reason that Step Brothers and Talladega Nights and the other guys, all of these were great movies at their time. Superbad. You throw that in there. Or Anchorman. I mean, these were fantastic movies because they were different enough, but they all had similar taste in terms of the comedic tropes that they pulled. But yeah, I mean, as Nolan is saying, it's like, no, you can't. You don't have to have one or the other. It takes both.
Yeah.
And it needs to be about preserving both.
He's someone who's made both. He's done a franchise. He did the Batman.
Dark Knight, yeah.
And he's done original stuff. So, and speaking of, he did a movie in between each Dark Knight movie. So those movies came out almost 2 years or more apart because he did Batman Begins,
Then
Inception, Dark Knight, Interstellar, Dark Knight Returns. So it's like,
Rises.
or Rises, Returns is the graphic novel.
But it's like, I no doubt Nolan. It's funny how he kind of seems to be the cool-headed, common sense. Like he has his artistic preservation of wanting to uphold film and keep it preserved, and I get that. But it's like he still has a calm, cool. It's like, who doesn't want to show up to a theater sometimes and just watch stuff blow up?
Yeah.
Because, again, one thing I can say about Napoleon that I really enjoyed, the sound design in IMAX for that period of a film was fantastic, phenomenal. Reasons you do go see something in that premium format is to get an experience that you don't just get watching at home on a sound bar.
I think Nolan just he still has a little bit of that realism. He hasn't become that level of conceited yet, like not to say that Scorsese is, but a little bit, or Ridley Scott or Dave or freaking Cronenberg, where you think you're such an auteur that no matter what you do is brilliant. I don't think Christopher Nolan's hit that point where he's so full of himself that he's like,
and part of what makes Nolan great is that he knows he's a certain type of filmmaker.
Yes.
He has his own signature in all of the movies that he creates.
Yes.
Even in the Dark Knight trilogy. And we were even joking about it last week about how it has some one-liner clunkers that aren't great. But Nolan still has a way of directing a film. He is a certain kind of director. And he's not going to go out there and try to make the other guys.
Yeah.
He's not going to go make a Talladega Nights. And what's interesting is whether you can have that tapestry of content and go between the two. Some can pull it off. Others can't. And Scorsese likes to make a certain type of film. We need and want Scorsese films.
Yeah.
But not every movie needs to be a Scorsese film.
Sometimes you want Talladega Nights.
Exactly. Yeah. And thankfully Nolan is admitting, like, I make a certain type of film.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I like to make, and that's what I do. But that doesn't mean that there aren't others out there that need to not only be consumed and enjoyed, but it takes all kinds.
Well, like you said, audiences want difference. Like not me,
even
and you,
within
Sean,
franchises.
Yeah, we go to see certain movies that we know, like we're interested in. None of us were really interested in Barbie because we're 30. We're in the we're men aged in the 30s. It's like we don't care about Barbie.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean obviously billions of people did, or millions. They made billions.
Yeah. But it's interesting, too, because even then, within franchises, you still want variety. I mean, this is what the brilliance of Marvel was early on. They recognized, hey, we can take each of these characters, fit them into a particular genre, and it's going to be different each time. It's not just going to be another superhero film.
And then they just all started turning into cookie cutter. This is Marvel. This is Marvel. Look at this weird glob thing.
Yep.
Yeah. They tried to go the horror suspense route with Doctor Strange. And that failed miserably. Like I didn't feel like that was scary at all. But that was one of the things with Multiverse of Madness was that it was supposed to be them breaking into this.
Well, that's why the original
genre.
director left, because he wanted to do something different. They told him no, so he went and made Black Phone instead. And they got Sam Raimi because I think he was just more of the easier horror adjacent. Like he'll make something macabre, but it'll still fit in with what
Marvel.
It'll have the goofy Evil Dead atmosphere, if anything.
Yes, but the problem was the writing was so terrible that even Raimi's style doesn't save it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, Black Widow was supposed to be this spy
espionage thriller,
and it wasn't.
It starts that way. Like that's actually what the beginning of Black Widow is one of the best beginnings of any Marvel film. Like I was hooked. Like, oh dang, this is going to be good.
But then once they introduce.
What's her name? The
sister
Florence Pugh.
and
once
David
they go, once they come back
Harbour.
as adults, like she's now Yelena's grown up and David Harbour's. Yeah, once they turn it into this kind of slapstick Marvel. Look, he's the big doofus. It's like he was an undercover agent for how many years in America?
Yeah.
But now he's turned into this moron. Like he had to have been competent enough to be undercover as a Soviet spy for years.
Yeah, I can't believe I ever gave that. I still give that movie credit, and it's just because of how low Marvel has sunk. But I still look back on that and I'm like, man, yeah, that's true. Black Widow was also bad.
It's not bad, but
it's not terrible.
But you can see
bad.
the writing on the writing on the wall then
very quickly with where they were going.
I would still give it 2.5. Like I like it. I've watched it multiple
Actually, we could go back and see what we gave it. I think we gave.
I said
it
3. I
3.
would give it 2.5.
Right.
Now.
Yeah. But I wonder what we did give.
Probably 3. Because I did like it a lot more. But at the time, Marvel had it was one of those
Marvel hadn't gone the route that they've
gone. It was one of those things. And it was COVID. Yeah. We were coming back. It was
acceptable. I was
like,
this is still well made and interesting enough that I wanted to see what direction Marvel was going to go.
It was even taking place before Endgame.
Yeah,
so I'm like, okay, well, this isn't great, but it's getting our feet wet for what's to come. And then
I keep thinking of parts like Taskmaster, which was again writing on the wall because they changed the character to this to a woman, like the character's nothing like the comics. Then we're just going to nitpick Marvel again.
Well,
it's like we're in the theater and he mentions Madam Web, and I'm like, none of that is
it'd
accurate.
be the same thing as 50 different originals could come out, and there's only going to be a few that appeal, because if everything is original, I'm going to have to I have to segment my time accurately or not accurately. I have to segment my time appropriately based on how much time I can provide. And so sometimes that is the brilliance of having a franchise that you do love and trust. I mean, part of what I think made Top Gun such a success was it was a return to a cult classic from the 80s, and it was it's better, arguably better than the original. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they nailed it in such a way that word of mouth alone got people to go back and see it, and even others to say, oh, okay, I'll go check this out, was a testament to the cult classic favoritism of the original, but also how much time that had to incubate until you landed on a sequel that was worth telling.
Yeah.
And that's what the problem with these franchise films and what we've seen with Marvel is, far too often now do they just kind of throw crap together because they're like, well, this worked in the past, it might as well work now. Yeah. And the same, it's like, just as much as I'm not going to check out every single new original that comes out, because there's a plethora of movies out there that I haven't seen or will never ever know of, because there's plenty of them out there. But just like the same problem exists with franchise films, and too much of a good thing can become a bad thing.
Once there's so many, you can't keep track. It's
you
like,
can
how do you
spoil my meal?
It's like, how do you keep track? If you're someone like me who likes Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who, but now there's 6 Star Trek series, 4 Star Wars series, and all 3 of them are have been injected with just woke everything, and I'm like, well, dang, every major sci-fi like that's been for years, all of those since the 60s. 70s for Star Wars, but Star Trek and Doctor Who started in the 60s. I'm like, literally every age-old like staple of sci-fi you have now ruined, and it's shoved down people's throats so much that nobody cares.
Yep. Well, and that's the other thing. You especially with franchises when it comes to that.
Yeah.
When you take the original property and you completely give a big middle finger to the originals, and not only that, but the fans who have stuck
been fans
through
for
it,
decades.
Decades. Why would you expect them to just take it on the chin and still show up to support you? Mm-hmm. You are telling them by the way that your writing is being done that we don't care about.
Well, no, because they come back with Star Trek was always woke. Doctor Who was always why? Because they showed.
And here's the thing: keep telling your audience that, and keep telling the people that you want them to believe that. Yeah. But when it comes down to it, it's like I think it is the Variety article that I linked to. It'll be in the description about Wish being a flop. They're like, the real problem is we don't know why. Maybe, and then this was my favorite part. They literally threw out, they were like, we can't understand why this movie flopped like all those others. Maybe it was the SAG strike. But even they underscore that with their own sentence saying, but that's been long over for a while now. I'm like, you can't even come up with any more excuses because you don't want to actually pinpoint what the real problem is.
It's
because you want to still beat the woke drum. And they'll throw even COVID in there when
people
they can.
Nobody came back to the theaters after COVID. Nobody will come back. It's like they came back for Top Gun. They came back for Spider-Man. They came back for Avatar.
Yeah. They themselves are getting tired of the lukewarm crap that's being shoveled out. Yeah. And they'll criticize it, but they still want the woke messaging. So, but the problem is their peddling of that and their pandering to it hasn't met. It hasn't completely. I know you want to say the South Park Vanderbilt.
Stick a woman in it, make it lame.
But it is. It's funny because they can't even pander to the point of it being a good story. They've covered all the woke bases, and they want to continue to be woke, and they still want that message to be forced into everything. And so they'll give it enough brownie points, but after a while, not even that is saving face when it comes to people who've not only caught on to it and aren't showing up and putting butts in seats or paying for it, but even then, it's not making up for terrible storytelling. In essence, because all the creativity has gone towards the message itself. Yeah. There is no unique storytelling anymore. And it really is coming down to, no, you're falling flat on your face because people are just tired of it.
Yeah.
And they will go to other ends or even revisit other stuff that is older because it at least tells an invigorating story that's worth telling.
Yeah, I can still rewatch the original Star Wars.
That's right.
Yeah. What scares me though is, and I appreciate Nolan's voice in this matter because he's not somebody that's been that's been opinionated.
No, he normally keeps
especially
to himself,
he keeps to himself, and it's only in recent years that he's really kind of started to become this voice for saving the film industry, really. But Oppenheimer wasn't unique. And it's like, so even the greats like Christopher Nolan are starting to become less unique. And it's like, I hope that doesn't become a trend. I want another Inception. I want another Tenet, which Tenet wasn't even his best, but at least it had me thinking. And it's like Oppenheimer was not supposed to be this mental mind bender, but it's still the method of storytelling. So you did color in black and white for two different perspectives, and it's like, that's not exactly unique. Dunkirk was unique in the way that you tell through time and through all these. That was unique,
fantastic.
Yeah, but it's like, even from him, I would say you're not exactly giving me anything fresh either with your latest run. So,
and I think that does happen over time. That's part of Tarantino's point of why he only wanted to do 10 and done, because he just doesn't believe it's possible to maintain the same level of quality and creativity forever.
Yeah. Well,
and some people
can,
some people do.
And even with Tarantino, though, it still comes to the understanding that his movies aren't released.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: if I sat down and watched all of Tarantino films after
I'd get tired.
After the third or fourth film, I'm kind of
like,
okay, I'm good for a while on Tarantino.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, too, that's the thing about what makes these directors so good, is that they are consistent, but it's a treat. I mean, that's why it's kind of sad when you see someone like a Ridley Scott or a Steven Spielberg in this instance also, who for so long was just at one after another, they could not fail. And they were just so good at not only the storytelling medium, but telling it in their way that made them unique, that every time I was walking in, I knew I'd be entertained.
Yeah.
And it's still that they're not terrible, but when I go in, I'm now, it's more lackluster, because I'm like, okay, have you just gotten tired, or have you just rested on your laurels that no matter what you put out, you're going to be this good, or
everybody's going to come see it.
Yeah. Right. Or that I don't even have to try anymore to think creatively. I don't think Nolan's in that camp. I think Scott's kind of been in that camp for quite a while, because he thinks his crap doesn't stink.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's like, no, I don't have to have something original every single time, even for a Nolan film. But at the very least, I have to have something entertaining. And if I'm watching your film and I'm not entertained by it, and I feel like you're just either slipping back into something that is comfortable for you, but isn't really, pushing the medium forward in a way that you have before, then I'm gonna take off points.
Are you not entertained?
I knew he was gonna do
Gladiator, baby.
You're talking about being entertained, and Ridley Scott. Yeah, there you are.
Exactly. And I'm not entertained.
Are you not entertained?
I'm not.
All right, in there twice.
I think we've got to beat this.
Ridley Scott.
Yep, he used to be.
No, but we didn't even mention Blade Runner.
Oh yeah,
this is great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and there's a reason why it holds up.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, because so much of that movie is atmosphere, and there are arguably parts where you could say it's boring.
Yeah, it drags some, but
there's times too where I'm like, but so much of it is about the atmosphere.
It's the world building,
right?
Yeah. It's like even at its worst, it's like you're fascinated by the fact that this feels like this real, lived in, breathed in world.
Yes, right. And I don't know. Look, anybody should be open to a healthy amount of criticism, and at least I think that's what Nolan is somewhat mentioning here, in terms of there being a fine balance between franchises and originals. It's him coming to terms with, yes, we need both, because you need that kind of interesting play on not going and just seeing only my films. But I also hope that's not him admitting and giving in to mediocrity. Please don't let that be the case. I hope his next film is better than Oppenheimer, because I'm with Sean. It wasn't an amazing spectacle of a film that I think was being touted. It was a cultural event, no doubt, especially releasing alongside Barbie. But I think he can do better.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping he does.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I think we're ready to move on to our unique weekly segment.
Yeah.
Let's move into our relationships.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above and a thing you call love.
Oh. We're talking about relationships, guys.
Oh, God.
He loves playing that on this one.
I know. It's like you got this loving feeling, and then just Anakin. I hate you.
It's because he's in the sand. It's so
He
coarse.
hates sand. It gets everywhere.
I thought this was for the season. We're also going to have another relationship segment at the end of the season.
Yeah.
On the 26th, the day after Christmas. So I was like, we can get Christmassy with that one, but this is still Christmassy. But it's a little entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
How have Santa and Mrs. Claus lasted this long, guys? How have they made it work?
I'll tell you how.
Oh no!
They have stolen so many children's souls. They've lived for thousands of years. That's how they last so long. The innocent children, they come into their homes and beat them over the head with burlap sacks filled with pine cones and quarters. And they say, you come into our hole, the Klaus hole. They drag them down and steal their souls.
Oh, she sucks it right into her candle.
And they've lived for thousands of years.
That's how it is. That's how it's done.
And love.
And they've mutual love for each other over their hatred of the innocent.
Yes.
That's it. That's it.
Mutual hate builds love.
That's it.
It's a Disney movie.
That's what we learned from Anakin.
Yeah.
Hate, breed. Yep.
It's worked for the Klauses.
I'm telling you, they just, their love is that which cannot be explained through the testament of time and the stealing of souls of children.
You're gonna say her candle is not lit yet.
Because she hasn't stolen enough souls yet.
Well, it only lights. It lights Santa's sleigh on Christmas Eve night, delivering the presents with all of the souls still yet to be taken. It's a grim reminder of what is to come next year. Will your house be one that has presents delivered? Or will your child's soul be taken?
Gosh, I thought you were reading this.
No,
off
I
of the
don't.
script
Yeah,
or
that's
something.
it.
That was good.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we could make that would be a good, that would be like a Krampus movie.
Yeah.
Krampus.
Dark
Krampus.
story about Santa.
Like
Mrs. Claus.
parents awaken Christmas Day to find their lifeless child's body, just a husk in its bed.
Now, what would be even worse is that they get turned into coal, and the coal that's being burned is your child's soul.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, that would be grim.
The Klauses.
I was thinking Krampus would be better if it was just like a film about a woman who's on her period on Christmas. And she just ruins Christmas because she's having cramps. It's Krampus.
Krampus.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
I just say Krampus.
Krampus.
I think that
Is
sounds
that
Yeah.
is it?
I think
Krampus?
it's a potato. I
Okay.
think
I
it's,
really don't know.
I
I know it's
well,
German.
I think
Krampus.
Probably.
Krampus.
I say probably the German accent is more Krampus, but the English bastardization of it is
Krampus.
Krampus. It's like
Y'all seen that
Yeah,
Krampus
that
movie?
country
Krampus.
hick way of doing
You
it.
ever seen Krampus?
Y'all seen that Bad Santa?
It's like, what you talking about, Grandma? I had a Krampus last night.
Yeah.
My Charlie horse is acting up.
It's about Krampus is out in Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
Sitting there in a rocking chair.
Yeah.
Get out here and light my damn candle.
Put another coal in the
It's
fire.
it's
I got
like
Krampus.
that's what we call Grandpa over there. He's old Krampus.
Bring me a Mountain Dew.
He gets cramped up and crabby, and he just yells at you. That's just old Krampus over there.
But no, I just thought it'd be a fun topic.
Yeah.
That's how they made it.
They've
last so
made
long.
it. I'm surprised that in this day and age, Hollywood has.
1700 years.
That's what I'm saying. I'm surprised Hollywood hasn't tried to be more like, they haven't done something crazy woke with. Why isn't there a gay Santa movie?
Dude, you're saying it. It's
There
probably
probably
you're-
is.
They're
I'm
probably
just
willing
saying.
it into action right
Something
now.
Mr. and Mrs. Claus cannot be a staple.
Directed
I feel like
by
that is
Martin
just
Scorsese.
There's everything wrong with the world. Just this wholesome white couple delivering gifts to kids.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. That's a falsehood.
Yep.
Lowe's, man. They got Black Santa everywhere.
Oh,
They got the giant statue of
Yep.
him. They got miniature statues. I
My
saw him at
favorite,
Walmart
my favorite
too
one
the
is
other
the
night.
meme where they show the Black Santa and then they show he's got a black beard and they're
Yeah.
like, even they turned his beard black.
Yeah, yeah. He was middle. He
You
was
can't even have a
Ethiopian.
white beard.
Ethiopian.
No.
It's like they do know like black people they have white hair. So like when they get older,
Yes.
Yeah.
their hair can still turn white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
No, this is Middle Eastern Santa.
Yeah. But no, I just think it's funny that, they've been around that long. Actually, Mrs. Claus, it's foretold that she didn't come around because obviously Santa Claus dates back to Saint Nicholas
Yeah,
in the church
yeah.
in like the year like it's like the 3rd century.
That's basically the Santa as we know comes from the actual real life Saint
Right.
Nick. Yes,
But it is interesting that I forget they don't know specifically the year that Mrs. Claus came around, but they know she was born on December 25th.
nice.
So that is her birthday.
Yes,
Nice.
Merry
But
Christmas.
look, they're the oldest
Man
couple.
wasn't meant to be alone. So.
That's right.
Yep.
And it is interesting that they have not. You're right. I'm surprised they have not come out with like Santa and Mrs. Claus getting a divorce. That'll be soon. It really irked me, and this is kind of off topic a little bit, but I was watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, trying to get into the spirit. Terrible idea because they've just ruined that tradition.
Yeah.
But they had a show. They literally had an actress from this show that they were promoting as a new NBC comedy. And they were on there talking about it, promoting it. Well, then after she talks about it, they then cut to a trailer of it going into their commercial break. I forget what the name of the show is. It's got, what's his name? Turk from Scrubs.
Oh, okay. Donald Faison.
Donald Faison.
Or Faison,
And
yeah.
he's in it. The guy from 2.5 Men, not Charlie Sheen, the other guy, I forget his name.
Oh yeah. I can't. It's on the tip of my tongue, but yeah.
And I'm forgetting Abigail Spencer is the woman's name. Basically, Abigail Spencer and the guy from 2.5 Men are divorced.
Okay.
She is now dating Donald Faison,
Yeah.
and they all
Well, that's an
live
upgrade.
together because they have to have this blended family, and they can get along great. And it's this story about how you can get along after you're divorced with it kills me because they're trying to make this happy-go-lucky comedy
Me
about
and my 2 husbands.
right. Exactly. It's like, oh yeah, everything is peachy keen and it's all good and everything is great. And I'm just, it kills me because it used to be that sitcoms were created to mimic the ideal. But now we are creating things to live in our misery and laugh through the misery and the pain to make it seem like, no, let's all be in misery together. And that's what life is about, is none of us are happy, but we can all laugh about it. Let's all slit our wrists and die happy.
I mean,
That's what I feel like we are at in society. That is where we are.
it's
The
the
freaking
meme of the dog in the burning house where he's drinking coffee and it says, "This
everything's
is fine."
fine.
Yeah,
Exactly.
This is fine.
Yeah.
This is-
and I just found it funny because it completely mimicked the AI thing I sent you all.
Oh, where it was burning
Anna,
it all down?
Indiana, and
Yeah.
her made up song that
Yeah.
was completely AI generated from everything that
Well,
she
that's-
could pull was about burning everything down.
Everybody's
Yeah.
like, "See, this is why AI is going to kill us."
Burning
It's like,
down the town.
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, you're right. AI is going to kill us, but AI is learning from us. So the only reason,
it's mimicking us.
the only reason AI is going to kill us is because literally so many people like think humanity's a plague and deserves to die.
Yep.
Literally, that's what we're teaching it. It's so I mean,
Mother Nature can reign because global warming.
it's going to do it out of service to us.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, oh, they want to die.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
So
like literally
they're in
oblige them.
misery. They
Yeah.
live in misery.
it's
Right.
like
Let's put them out of their
humans
misery.
are a plague to the earth. They think that themselves. So
It's just
Yeah.
awful.
it is.
I didn't really mean for this to turn
no.
sour.
Well,
Yes,
I'm
so good.
if you want, well, this is part. Okay,
It's the best relationship.
on another
segment
relationship note, as a dude, if I had to pick between John Cryer, that's the 2.5 guy's name, John Cryer or Donald Faison, I would go with Donald Faison too. So
because he's black.
because
I'm
he's
just kidding.
well, he is black,
he's
but
way
he's
funnier.
He's also he's actually funnier
Yeah.
and better looking. John
Yeah,
Cryer's a
The
weird
problem
dude.
with the whole entire trailer was not just the morals of it.
No,
the
I'd
problem
be
is that
facetious.
every set piece and every piece of script writing.
Yeah.
Talk about everything just being completely devoid of any creativity and actual comedy. But it's like, look no further than just the crap we're getting in the theaters. If you think that's taken a hit, no. Network television has been on life support for the last 10 years. It is awful what is out there. I don't know anybody who watches network TV.
Most of the people that watch it are on life support too.
Well, that's true, and it's because they don't have the capacity to change the channel. It's
Yeah.
just what's on in their hospital room.
Yeah, that's right.
They have no
It's that
choice.
Stupid remote.
They
Yeah,
have no
that's right.
No choice.
And I'm just like, look, that if there's anything, if somebody like
Sorry, Dad. He watches cable TV still.
cable
Sorry.
TV, you could still find good stuff.
Yeah.
Network television, no. NBC, CBS, ABC, they're god awful. Fox even. All it is reality singing crap.
There really
Mass
is,
Singer
yeah.
and a variation of it.
Yeah.
And it's just
it's all reality shows or terrible sitcoms. So
and the sitcoms are just they literally only last 1 or 2 seasons. I mean, I think it is funny because at least like they were promoting heavily that John Cryer is in it because of 2.5 Men
because it
success.
lasted 11 or 12 seasons.
And Chuck Lorre and even whatchamacallit, they've been talking up. It's lasted 7 seasons, but the spinoff of Big Bang Theory.
Oh yeah, that one's
Young Sheldon.
Sheldon.
I think Young Sheldon's the last decent because that one's not bad. I've seen it. It's the last decent sitcom.
I think it's terrible.
And when it ends, I mean, I've only seen like the first 2 seasons.
I didn't like it.
And I was going to say,
we couldn't get into it.
Compared to what I saw of Big Bang Theory, I'm like, it's nowhere near it.
I couldn't get into How I Met Your Mother either, though.
Really?
People love that show.
Yeah, I love How I Met Your Mother. But yeah, I think, I mean, with the last 7 seasons, I think like, Young Sheldon's like the last decent like sitcom out there, and even it, like you said, isn't as good as, I mean, it's not lasting 11 seasons or 12 seasons.
It's
like
already
Big Bang
wrapping
Theory.
up.
So
and they had this whole huge comedy block that they tried to promote on ABC for the longest time of it being it was like Blackish, The Middle, and was it Grown Up-ish or something?
I don't know.
Or Fresh Off the Boat. Like they had this string of like 3 sitcoms, and I'm like, all of them were awful. They're just god awful, like terribly written comedies that are just have a laugh track in the background trying to make you funny.
Macy's, Mrs. Claus on Macy's is the black actress from Abbott
Elementary.
Abigail, yeah. And I thought Abbott Elementary, I don't think is funny. I've seen it, and I'm like, I don't enjoy this.
Yeah, we were having like a game night Saturday night with Amelia's family, and we're sitting there playing this game where you've got to like write down all the kind of like categories, kind of like that, but it was like sitcoms, and you had to you have a certain time limit. You got to go write down all the sitcoms you can think of, and it was funny because like there's 8 of us sitting at this table and we're playing the game. Everybody starts reading their answers, and all of the sitcoms that we mentioned were older shows.
Yep.
There was nothing new that any of us could even think of.
No,
it was Cheers, Frasier, Seinfeld. It was all of these old shows, and like none of them were modern shows. Scrubs, I think I put that, and my wife put that. It was like the only show in the last 10 years or so that's been.
And what's even, I think, sadder about this too is that it's like, it's not that there aren't other places that sit. I mean, you could sit there and argue, well, it's network TV. Nobody watches network TV anymore. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe not to consume sitcoms. I get that. But there are still other streaming services that try to do sitcoms, and they fail miserably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the reason is because the quality has gone down in creating a sitcom. I haven't watched the Frasier reboot. I've heard some minor good things about it, but I'm skeptical.
I've heard
the
good
original
things and
is
bad
so
things.
good, and I'm just like, there's no way they can touch that. There is a secret sauce, and mainly it's the writers, and it's the wit that current generation does not have.
The only reason I'm willing to maybe give that a chance is because of Kelsey Grammer. But even then, you're right. It's like, how do you tackle something from Cheers to Frasier with that character where the writing is so precise, and then to do it all over without any returning cast really other than Kelsey Grammer, it just kind of feels like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people's opinions for sitcoms in general. I think episodic television just isn't, people aren't as interested in it anymore.
Right.
It's like they like the like, it doesn't even have to be a drama because you have comedies that are episodic. I think it just is. It's the quality of sitcoms.
I think it's more so that. I mean, I think it's just that they don't have the same level of creativity that they once did. I mean, Cheers was a sitcom, but it became episodic. I mean, the idea was that once you warmed up to the characters enough,
well,
you
all
followed
sitcoms are episodic.
Greater, right? But you followed a greater story arc.
Yeah, there are some serialization, and that's different. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that this really is the age of serialized storytelling, where everything flows narratively
and a lot of
from
people
one beginning.
would blame it on binging.
Yeah.
And that you can't, like, everybody wants to binge something.
It's harder to binge something episodic because every episode stands on its own, and after a while you kind of get bored. But that's also not true, because I've binged older sitcoms because they are hilarious and keep your attention. So, which we've gone on a wild tangent now.
Yeah, I stopped throwing up the lore about, look, Santa and Mrs. Claus, they're happy. They're going to continue to be. Long live the Clauses and their blissful anniversary. Actually, I waited this whole show, and I shouldn't have waited this long. I should have done it at the top of the show, because there's no way they're ever going to hear this or listen to this point. happy anniversary to my parents.
Oh,
They are celebrating. Oh gosh, I don't know the number. Hold on.
terrible.
Because I'm
terrible.
pretty sure I know. I think it's 43. I'm pretty sure it's 43 years.
That's impressive.
Let me make sure. Yeah, 43 years. They are celebrating 43 years of marriage tomorrow on the 29th of November. So happy anniversary to my parents, Bob and Evelyn. Love you all, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I know they're going out and celebrating this weekend, but yep, can't wait till they celebrate their 50th.
Beautiful.
So it's beautiful. Many years of wedded bliss and love, just like the Klauses. Alrighty, guys.
They've been stealing souls all
no.
this time.
Yes, and I've been
They've
reaping
been
the
creating
benefits.
souls.
That's true.
3 of them.
Yep.
Your brother's soul is mine.
Save your pity for the weak. Alrighty, we definitely don't need a Mortal Kombat tangent.
No.
Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Next week, we're reviewing Godzilla -1. Big one on the block. Maybe it'll make a wave in the box office. A lot of good things.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Yep.
I'm
but
looking forward to it.
we're reviewing that next week, and we are starting our Christmas rom-coms next week.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact order yet, but I think we have them nailed down. We'll let you know. You'll find out next week the rest of them. But yes, that starts next week. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
John Sebastian.
and
I gotta poop.
it's that coffee, man.
God.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.